This is a story about betrayal, loss, and the steep price you pay when trust is shattered. Chapter 1. Coming Home. David Collins parked his company SUV in the driveway of his two-story suburban home and sat for a moment behind the wheel. 4 days on the road for work felt like a lifetime when your wife and son were waiting at home. He popped the trunk, pulled out his overnight bag and a gift bag, a model truck for Mikey, and a bottle of French perfume for Amy. "Daddy's here," came a small, excited voice from inside the house. The front door burst open, and 6-year-old Mikey ran out onto the porch in just his socks, ignoring the cool spring air. He leapt into David's arms, chattering breathlessly about preschool, his new building set, and how Mom had taken him out for ice cream. "Easy there, champ," David laughed, setting his bag down and hugging him tight. "Where's Mom?" "In the kitchen," Mikey replied. "She said you'd be starving." Amy appeared in the doorway, wiping her hands on a kitchen towel. 38 suited her. Hair in a casual bun, light makeup, a simple home dress that somehow made her even more attractive. 7 years of marriage, and David still caught himself thinking how beautiful she was. "Miss me?" she asked, with a short kiss on the lips. "You have no idea," he murmured, wrapping an arm around her waist and breathing in her familiar scent. But something about that scent was different, sweeter. "Mikey, go wash your hands," Amy said, glancing at her son. "Daddy needs to change." Upstairs, David hung his suit in the closet and pulled on a pair of jeans in a button-down. Business trips were part of his job as deputy director of a large distribution center, but coming home always felt like a little holiday. This was his place. Family, order, stability. At dinner, Mikey talked non-stop about the last 4 days. Amy mostly listened quietly, correcting him when he started to embellish his stories. "And then this kid in my class, Danny, pushed me, so I hit him back," Mikey announced, dunking bread into his gravy. "Mikey," Amy frowned. "We talked about that." "Who's Danny?" David asked. "Just a boy in his class," Amy said. "He's decided that every conflict has to be solved with his fists, but Danny started it." "Doesn't matter who started it," David interjected. "You don't fight in school." "What about the teacher?" he asked Amy. "Mrs. Peterson has called me in 3 times already." Amy sighed. "She says Mikey's become more aggressive lately." David looked at his son. Usually, Mikey was a calm kid, but tonight he seemed more wound up than usual. Maybe it was because David had been away, or maybe something else. "I'll stop by the school tomorrow and talk to Mrs. Peterson," David offered. "No need. I can handle it," Amy said quickly. "You've got enough work after your trip." "He's our son. I should be involved," David replied. "Of course. I just don't want you thinking I'm not doing a good job," she said, a trace of vulnerability in her voice he hadn't heard before. "You're a great mom. We're a team, remember," he said, covering her hand with his. Amy smiled, but it felt forced. After Mikey went to bed, they shared a glass of wine in the living room. David told her about the trip, new contracts, expansion plans for the distribution center. "How's the dealership?" he asked. "Same as always? Customers, cars, paperwork?" Amy replied, sipping slowly. "Though sometimes I think about doing something more creative." That surprised him. Amy had never complained about her job before. Never even mentioned wanting something different. But people change, he told himself. Later, in the bedroom, he noticed a new set of lingerie in her dresser. Black lace, expensive, nothing like what she usually bought. "Nice," he remarked when she came out of the bathroom. She blushed, which was unusual for her. Wanted to surprise you when you got back. You didn't have to. Yes, I did. You work hard. You deserve attention. They made love gently, almost like they were getting to know each other again. But David couldn't shake the feeling that Amy was somewhere far away, even when she was right there in his arms. Chapter 2, A New Obsession. The next morning, David woke to the sound of clattering dishes in the kitchen. Amy was already dressed, helping Mikey get ready for daycare. "Mom, where are my red socks?" Mikey whined. "In the laundry. Wear the blue ones," she said, a hint of impatience in her voice, unusual for her. David came down the stairs. "Morning, family." Mikey ran to him. "Daddy." "Coffee's ready," Amy said, giving him a quick peck on the cheek before glancing at the clock. "Gotta go. We've got a meeting at the dealership at 8. The new manager likes early starts." She grabbed her purse and keys, kissed Mikey, and was out the door. David watched through the window as she got into her car, immediately picking up her phone and smiling at whoever was on the other end. Strange. Who's that cheerful at 8 in the morning? That day at work, a subtle unease followed him around. He chalked it up to post-trip restlessness. That evening, Amy came home late, saying she'd been tied up at work. Over dinner, David noticed she kept her phone face down on the table, something she'd never done before. The following week, over breakfast, Amy made an announcement. "I joined a gym," she said casually. "It's called MaxFit. It's right next to the dealership." David looked up from his paper. "Really? What brought this on?" "I want to get back in shape. After having Mikey." David hid his surprise. After having Mikey was 6 years ago, and Amy had always looked great. "You look perfect to me," he said. "That's sweet, but I feel like I've lost muscle tone. In the mirror, I see a different woman." "What's a gym?" Mikey asked between bites of cereal. "It's where people go to exercise, to be healthy and strong," Amy explained. "Can I go with you?" "Sorry, buddy, it's just for grown-ups." "How often are you planning to go?" David asked. 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. My trainer says less than that won't get results." "You already have a trainer?" "Yes, Grant. Everyone says he's one of the best." "When did you meet him?" "Yesterday. I stopped by to check out the place after work." David raised an eyebrow, but said nothing. That night, he picked up Mikey from daycare while Amy went to her first session. She came home at 8, cheeks flushed, hair damp, wearing a brand new, high-end workout outfit. "How was it?" he asked. "Hard. Grant's demanding, but he says I've got potential." The next week, Amy started talking more and more about Grant, his tips, his routines, the way he really understands how to get results. David tried to be supportive, but a small knot formed in his stomach. Why was she so excited? Soon, extra sessions on weekends became a thing. "Grant says serious results require serious commitment," Amy explained. David noticed she was spending more on workout clothes and supplements than on groceries. At dinner, she'd push away her plate. "Grant put me on a strict diet," she'd say. Meanwhile, Mikey grew sulky. One Wednesday evening, he clung to her legs, crying, "Don't go. We were supposed to play Lego." "We'll play tomorrow," she promised, prying his arms away. "You said that yesterday," he sniffled. David crouched down to comfort him after she left. "Does Mom still love us?" Mikey asked, eyes brimming with tears. "Of course she does, buddy. She's just busy right now." But David wasn't sure he believed it himself. Chapter 3. Warning Signs. By mid-March, David could feel the atmosphere at home shifting. Small details stood out. Amy's new perfume, her distracted glances, her phone always within reach, but face down. One Friday afternoon, David picked up Mikey from daycare. Mrs. Peterson, his teacher, met him at the door. "Mr. Collins, can we talk?" David's stomach tightened. "Is something wrong?" "Mikey got into a fight again today. 2 boys, actually. One ended up with a bloody nose. That makes 4 incidents in 2 weeks." David frowned. "What started it?" "They were playing with toy cars. One boy took Mikey's favorite. He attacked him without trying to talk it out." She hesitated, lowering her voice. "Children are sensitive to changes at home. Is everything okay?" David forced a smile. "We're fine. Thank you for letting me know." On the drive home, Mikey sat in the back seat, unusually quiet. "Mrs. Peterson told me about the fight," David said. "Want to explain?" "They started it," Mikey muttered. "You can't solve problems with your fists. If someone takes your toy, ask for it back or get a teacher." "Mom says you should fight back," Mikey said. That startled David. Amy had always been the talk-it-out parent. "When did she say that?" "I don't remember," Mikey replied, staring out the window. That night, Amy came home later than usual. "Inventory at the dealership," she explained. "Corporate's got new rules. We have to count everything every month now." David caught the scent of her new perfume again. "Changed fragrances?" "A coworker gave it to me for Valentine's Day," she said. "That was weeks ago." "So? I can wear it whenever I want." Her tone was sharper than necessary. Over dinner, her phone kept lighting up. She silenced it. "Clients won't stop calling," she explained. "Maybe you should get a separate work phone," David suggested. "I'll think about it," she said, shutting down the topic. Meanwhile, Mikey barely touched his dinner. "I want Mom to play with me like before." "Mikey, Mom's tired from work," David said. "She didn't get tired before." Amy stood abruptly. "We'll play this weekend." But Saturday morning came and went, and Amy left for an extra workout. That night, David tried to talk to her in the kitchen. "Amy, you've been distant lately, more nervous, distracted. Is something wrong at work?" "Number, I'm just tired. It's spring. I'm low on energy. Maybe I'll take a vacation. Let's go somewhere. The 3 of us," David offered. "Not now. Too much going on." Her phone lit up again. She glanced at it quickly, then slid it into her purse. "Spam call," she said. David didn't push, but the picture in his head was growing darker. Late nights, new habits, the way she lit up when talking about her trainer. Alone in bed that night, he decided to watch more closely. Not to accuse, just to notice. Chapter 4. The Truth Comes Out. The following Tuesday morning, over breakfast, Amy dropped another casual announcement. "I'm meeting Grant early today. He wants to show me some new core exercises before class." "Your session's at 7 p.m., right?" David asked. "He suggested I come by at 6. Says I'm one of his more promising clients, and I could achieve a lot more with extra effort." David just nodded, though the way she said promising stuck in his head. That afternoon, he decided to surprise her. He'd pick up Mikey from daycare, then swing by the gym to meet Amy after her workout. Maybe the spontaneity would melt some of the ice that had built up between them. But when he got to daycare, Mrs. Peterson told him, "Mikey's already gone. Mr. Simmons picked him up." David froze. "Who?" "Oliver Simmons. He said you asked him to." "I didn't." Outside, he called Oliver. "Amy asked me to grab Mikey," Oliver said quickly. "She said your plans changed." "When did she call you?" "About an hour ago." David hung up, a cold heaviness settling in his chest. Instead of heading home, he drove straight to MaxFit. In the parking garage, he spotted Amy's silver crossover tucked away in a far corner. So she was here. Upstairs, he grabbed a coffee at a cafe across from the gym entrance and waited. People came and went. Men and women in athletic gear, chatting and laughing. but Amy never appeared. After an hour, he walked over to the front desk. "My wife, Amy Collins. Did her class finish?" The young receptionist checked her computer, then looked up with mild confusion. "She hasn't been in all week." David's stomach dropped. "Are you sure?" "Yes, sir. We have an electronic check-in system. Last time she came was last Tuesday." He thanked her and left, heart pounding. In the car, he opened the family locator app they'd installed 2 years ago for safety. A red dot appeared on the map, not at Maxfit, but at an address across town. 20 minutes later, he pulled up to an aging apartment building. He climbed the stairs, scanning numbers, until he reached one with the door slightly ajar. From inside came voices, a man's low and steady, a woman's soft and familiar. "I can't stay long. My husband's expecting me," Amy said. "Half an hour more," the man replied. "Mikey's with Oliver, right?" A laugh followed. Light, happy, the kind David hadn't heard from her in months. Then, silence, broken by the unmistakable sounds of intimacy. David stepped inside. In the small living room, Amy was on the couch with a man in his 30s. Tanned, muscular, dark-haired. "Grant!" she gasped, grabbing a bedsheet. David stood frozen for a second. Then something inside him snapped. He lunged forward, shoving Grant off the couch. The trainer scrambled for his clothes, muttering, "I'm out of here," as he bolted for the door. Amy clutched the sheet tighter. "David, I can explain." "Don't," he said flatly. The rage drained as quickly as it had surged, leaving only emptiness. He scanned the room. The cheap furniture, the photo of Grant on the nightstand, and knew this wasn't the first time she'd been there. "How long?" he asked. 2 months, she whispered. "We met at the gym, but—" He turned for the door. "David, please. We have a family, a child." "We had a family," he said, without looking back, walking out into the hallway. For the first time in weeks, everything made sense. The perfume, the late nights, the sudden obsession with fitness. 7 years of marriage had ended in 5 minutes in someone else's apartment. And the hardest part wasn't losing Amy. It was knowing he'd have to explain to Mikey why his mom wouldn't be living with them anymore. Chapter 5. Aftermath. David filed for divorce the following Monday. His attorney, an older man with tired eyes, listened without interrupting as David laid out the facts. Amy's affair, the months of deception, her inconsistent presence in Mikey's life. "I want primary custody of my son," David said. "I have a stable job, a house, and a steady income. Amy rents, works long hours at the dealership, and—" He hesitated. "She's been involved with another man." The attorney nodded, jotting notes. "Given the circumstances, your case is strong. Judges typically favor the parent who can provide stability. Amy hired her own lawyer, a young woman who argued in court that infidelity didn't make Amy a bad mother, that a boy needed his mom. But the facts spoke louder. David's home ownership versus her rental, his consistent caregiving versus her missed pickups from daycare, and Mrs. Peterson's testimony about Mikey's recent emotional struggles. When the judge asked Amy about Grant, she admitted they'd broken up a week after David confronted her. He said he wasn't ready for serious commitment, especially not to a divorced mom with a child. The custody decision came quickly. Mikey would live with David full-time, visiting Amy on weekends. At first, Mikey asked, "When is Mom coming home?" David kept it simple. "Mom will live in her own place now, but you'll see her every weekend." One afternoon, Mikey surprised him with, "Is it because of that other man?" David hesitated. "Partly, yes. Does she love him more than us?" "I don't know, buddy. You can ask her." In the months that followed, Amy tried to patch things up. She'd linger after dropping Mikey off, her eyes red, saying, "David, I made a mistake. Grant meant nothing. I was just lost." 2 months isn't a moment of weakness, Amy, he'd reply. And you were willing to risk Mikey's home life for it. No, you chose someone else over your family. I can't undo that. Work kept David busy, especially after he was promoted to director of the distribution center. The extra income let him and Mikey move to a bigger home in a quieter neighborhood. Weekends with Amy were awkward. She'd take Mikey to the movies or the park, but her funds were tight. Once, he asked her, "Mom, why's your apartment so small?" "Because Mom made some bad choices," she said softly. By spring, David had settled into the new routine. Weekdays with Mikey, evenings playing soccer in the yard, quiet dinners without glancing at a phone face down on the table. One warm Saturday, they were at the park near the playground, where they'd gone as a family years ago. Mikey chased the ball, laughing, trying to outmaneuver his dad. David let him win a few rounds. From a nearby bench, Amy watched. She looked older somehow, her smile forced. She waved when David glanced over, but he only nodded. Later, she approached as Mikey ran for his water bottle. "David, I want to say this right. I know I destroyed everything. I don't blame you for not forgiving me. I know you understand," he said evenly. "And what do you feel toward me now?" she asked. "Nothing," he answered. "You're Mikey's mother, that's all." Even her request to know if he was dating again got only a calm. "That's not your business." Mikey returned, grabbing David's hand. "Dad, can we play more?" "Sure. Say goodbye to Mom." "Bye, Mom. See you Saturday." Amy watched them walk away. A tall man in a windbreaker and a little boy running beside him. Her former family, now complete without her. The sun dipped behind the buildings, the sound of children's laughter filling the air. Life went on, indifferent to one woman's private tragedy. She stood, heading back to her small apartment, back to a life she'd chosen when she chose Grant over her marriage. The cost of betrayal, she realized, wasn't just losing her husband. It was losing the trust and closeness of the only person whose love had been unconditional. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe. There are plenty more stories you won't want to miss.